This was in Washington Post in 2014. This is a 9-year-old article on basically the influence that is being bought at Brookings. And just a couple of things here. Lobbyists say they warn clients not to expect that they can dictate research results from an elite think tank such as Brookings, but note that they gain a chance to make their case directly to researchers, stay in touch as papers are written, and suggest participants in public forums.
Whoa.
By enlisting Brookings and other top-tier think tanks, quote, you can amplify or raise an issue, said Ed Cutler, a senior partner at Mercury, a public affairs and lobbying firm that has developed expertise in think tanks. Quote, you can buy attention, but not a point of view or an outcome. So we've talked about the nature of attention before. You can take my screen down now, Zach. And really what I wanted to say is just read this entire book. This is The World Beyond Your Head by the awesome Matthew Crawford on becoming an individual in an age of distraction. So this is the book that followed his amazing book, Shopcraft is Soulcraft. This book explores the nature of attention, the attention economy, the fact that while we no longer are eagerly putting up with having polluted air, polluted water, a lot of us still put up with toxins in our food and our medicine, but increasingly people are thinking carefully about what is it that we have changed in our environment that is actually bad for us and making us crazy. Frankly, he focuses on attention in this book. So just a quick excerpt from this book. You can see, if you can see on the edge there, you probably can't see all of the book darts. This book is well worth book darting, and again, I highly recommend it. When we go through airport security, the public authority makes a claim on our attention for the common good. This moment is emblematic of the purpose for which political authority in a liberal regime is originally instituted, public safety, and rightly has a certain gravity to it. But in the last few years, I have found I have to be careful at the far end of the process because the bottoms of the gray trays that you place your items in for X-ray screenings are now papered with advertisements, and their visual clutter makes it very easy to miss a pinky-sized flash memory stick against a picture of fanned-out L'Oreal lipstick colors. I was already in a state of low-level panic about departure times, possible gate changes, and any number of other contingencies that have to be actively monitored while traveling, to say nothing of the fact that my memory is tapped out with detailed concerns about the talk I'm going to have to give in front of strangers in a few hours. This fresh demand for vigilance, lest I lose my PowerPoint slideshow, feels like a straightforward conflict between me and L'Oreal. Somehow, L'Oreal has the Transportation Security Administration on its side. Who made the decision to pimp out the security trays with these advertisements? The answer, of course, is that nobody decided on behalf of the public. Nobody with a capital N. Someone made a suggestion and nobody responded in the only way that seemed reasonable. Here is an inefficient use of space that could instead be used to inform the public of opportunities. Justifications of this flavor are so much a part of the taken-for-granted field of public discourse that they may override our immediate experience and render it unintelligible to us. Our annoyance dissipates into vague impotence because we have no public language in which to articulate it, and we search instead for a diagnosis of ourselves. Why am I so angry?
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I want to go one step farther before we leave this topic.
I want to talk about it.
Attention is one question here. That, what you read from 2009, was it? 14.
The 2014 Washington Post piece on Brookings basically selling influence or having access to influence. And then the Matthew Crawford book is 2015. It's just the next year, actually. So,
there's a claim in there, right? Oh, well, you can buy attention, but you can't buy influence, right? The point is, if it were, this is the process of capture taking place.
Yes.
If the Brookings Institution was independent, then it could check the quality of work done by others. That's a hazard. If the work done by others, if, Pfizer has purchased bad work to advance dangerous products, and it has caused the New York Times to be blind to the obvious indications that there is a problem inside of the connection between pharma and science, right? Then the Brookings Institution could spot it. Well, pharma can't very well tolerate that, so it's going to have to capture Brookings. So I don't know whether the connection here is pharma, but the basic point is, look, you are watching a process unfold in which something that could credibly tell us that the system has been compromised must itself be compromised so that it will not tell us that. right? Of course you can buy influence, right? Once one of these entities that has a financial interest gets its way into these organizations, then the point is, well, how smart do you have to be to realize that your grant is going to get funded if it leads in a direction that is pleasing to the funders, rather than is not going to get funded if it displeases them? It's not a hard thing for people to recognize. And so, of course, all of these things, can you buy influence over a senator? That would be illegal, right? Okay, but are there 1,000 ways? What can you wink at a senator such that they know that they're going to get a certain job in the private sector that isn't going to require a lot from them and is going to spit a lot of money in their direction after they leave public service? It's sure hard to prosecute. Is it? What did that wink mean? Oh, I just had something in my eye. Oh, I guess you're innocent. Right.
So, and again, this list from the Washington Post piece from 2014 on clients accessing research being done at, for instance, Brookings includes making a case directly to researchers, staying in touch as papers are written, and suggesting participants in public forums.
Right. And actually, this goes back to your, however many months ago, you're talking about Ms. Magazine abandoning advertisements, because although in theory the advertiser should have no influence on the content, those who work in these spaces know that that can't be true.
Yeah, and that's a whole other story. Specifically, back in the early 90s, advertisers felt that it was not just acceptable, but they got to demand that they could skew editorial content, specifically in publications that were deemed women's publications, such that you didn't feel a little icky or challenged or empowered, really, by reading an article that might be next to an advertisement for, say, L'Oreal, right? Just to pick on the people that Matthew Crawford already picked on. But it's the same for any of these products, right? Like the idea that if you want to have, if you want to help this publication survive, well, you get to change what the publication is and not have the readers end up empowered or educated or upset or angry. Well, then the publication is no longer what it was. So basically, you're buying an audience that in setting the terms for what your fees are going to buy, you are guaranteeing that the audience will disappear, right? The audience that was there for challenge, for education, will not continue to stay for cute stories about what lipstick to buy, or maybe they will. Well, in which case, your population becomes dumber and dimmer and duller and less able to tell the difference between correlation and causation, even when it's spelled out very clearly. And those people sometimes get to write up reports for the Brookings Institute, which then get empowered by the New York Times. And then, attention that could be coming to, hey, we'd like to help you become better able to make sense of your world. That attention has been scooted that way, because we're apparently dangerous zealots.
Well, in some ways, I think the overarching conclusion here is that they are making our point. Because our point from the beginning has been that the capture of the system by perverse incentives is making the information unreliable and putting you in danger as you try to follow it towards a reasonable course of action. Mm-hmm. And the point is, what are the chances that some report is going to come out and say, don't listen to those people, they are spreading misinformation, and then you scratch the surface and you get a bullshit method and pseudo-quantification? The point is, oh, of course, because they've been captured. How could they not have been captured? And why can you guarantee that something like that will be captured? Because 0 is a special number, right? If there were think tanks that were large and had this grand imprimatur that were actually free to do their job, we'd live in a different world, because they would be commenting on all of the corruption. They would be calling it out. And we would all subscribe to the publications that look to those think tanks to point the direction, because those things would be more reliable and we'd be safer and better informed. And who doesn't want that? And so the point is, this is the immune system of... This is the immune system of the corrupt institution-killing apparatus fighting those who, frankly, have to be outside of an institution even to do the work, right? That's the thing. We're out here defenseless because it's the only place the work can be done, because otherwise somebody says, Dr. Hying, I would like you to sit down with our funder so that they can, point your attention to some issues with the research that you're doing, right? And the point is, well, where does that not happen? Well, it doesn't happen here, right?
It doesn't happen here. And even the places that it doesn't happen in institutions, it could suddenly start to happen. It didn't happen at Evergreen, right? Like it was why the place was so magical, in part because of the remarkable, unprecedented, otherwise unknown level of autonomy that the faculty had to ask the questions they wanted to ask, to teach the way they wanted to teach, and to engage with ideas and curriculum in ways that may not have been orthodox, may not have been seen before, may not have been standard. And as long as you had respect and honor and everyone ended up okay in the end, like, good. Challenge. Make people feel uncomfortable, for sure, and because we were doing field biology, like, we're going to take risks of all the sorts, and we're going to be careful, and we're going to make sure that we plan a lot of things in advance by making sure that you have on board all of the tools that you need to make decisions in tough situations. But ultimately, this is about you and the universe and being honest about what you're seeing and what you're doing. And that's what we continue to do now. After the school went insane, and now after, the government and all the three-layer agencies have gone insane, and we were commenting on those things, to classes of 25 and 50 students for, a long time before we were doing that to an audience here that was larger than that of people we don't know. But, the lessons are the same. This is not, the idea that the institutions are captured and they are often doing exactly the opposite of what they're claiming to do is not news to us. Like, we were saying those things to our students for a very long time. And it was okay to say that at a school where we weren't relying on, for instance, funds from the NSF and NIH in order to pay our salaries.
So in some sense, you've got a pattern. We can observe what has taken place here, and we can describe the pattern, and then it makes a prediction about next time, right?
Yes.
If you are calling out the capture of institutions, if that institutional capture has covered everything, right, then you will be attacked by institutional stuff.
Yeah.
It will attempt to portray you as objectively off base. And when you scratch the surface, you will find bullshit in the methods. That's the prediction. Every time.
Snopes. PolitiFact.
For
an
example,
unnamed
Snopes.
dictionary.
Yeah.